I think India growth is sustainable at the 6% level. The question really is how do you take it to the 8-10% level? Now, if you just take a step back and think what this government has done, they've done a lot of things, especially outstanding stuff on implementing and execution, some of the kind of in-process reforms, the goods and services tax, the bankruptcy code. But most of all, I think they have formalized the economy a hell of a lot. And there's a big word called formalization, but frankly, you look at taxation, you look at following the rules and all that, I think it's far, far better than before. So I think that is a huge change. The second thing they've done, and I'll come back to your question, is building the physical and the digital infrastructure. That is formalization and crowding in a huge population, which otherwise in a big and a diverse country like India can be quite left out. So they've brought in a lot of that. I think those are two things you have to keep in mind, which answers the question as to why growth is looking good versus the others, right? Yeah. But I think you really have to think of how to take it to the next level of growth. India's per capita at 2,600 or 2,700 is not something that you want to be at. And that's where your question comes in about private investment. Government spending is huge and continues flawlessly. But crowding in private savings and private investments, I think, is the key for the next few years for this government. It's not about PE and VC. I think PE and VC come behind entrepreneurs, behind the Indian entrepreneurs. Okay. Don't expect a private equity or a venture capitalist to come and put up a factory or put up a real asset. Yeah. You ultimately need the entrepreneurs in India to step up. And I think we're seeing early signs of that, by the way. So I don't know what you heard in Delhi, but I would say last quarter we have seen an uptick in private investment. I think today for India, private investment is far more important than consumption, if you ask me. Okay. Not again at a maverick space of what we saw in 2010-11, which then led to a debt crisis and burdening the balance sheets. Yeah. But a far more sustainable. So what does it take to crowd in private investment? I think doing business in India, the confidence in the system, which I think there is. And frankly, availability of capital. We still don't have long-term local household savings capital in the country. Attracting from outside is always fine, and then you're vulnerable to interest rates and the carry trade and all that. Yeah. Long-term, long duration, high-quality local capital is what you need, which comes along with longer-term household savings. Okay. And frankly, the deficit is what it is. It's under control. But, India does finance all its deficit through Indian savings. So that crowds out the private sector a little bit. So I'm just trying to give you a kind of a bit of an economic theory, not that I'm an economist. Understood. So when you crowd out the private savings,
that's what happens, right?
To finance a fiscal deficit, which is not that high, but we are one of the unique countries which finances most of the deficit through Indian savings, which makes us less vulnerable, but crowds out the private savings. So you need long duration savings to fund long-term investments by the private sector. Gotcha. Then the PE and VC will follow.